Welcome to the Story Lab. I hope you enjoy this story. Let's begin. I stared at the clock on the living room wall, the ticking growing louder with each passing second. Where the hell was Nina? She had left for that damn party hours ago. Nina had stormed out hours ago, claiming she needed to blow off steam at some party hosted by a coworker. I pleaded with her to stay, but she shrugged me off, muttering something about me being too clingy. A knot of unease twisted in my gut as I tried to push away the nagging thoughts swirling in my mind. The sound of keys jingling outside jolted me from my thoughts. The front door swung open, and Nina stumbled in, her movements clumsy and uncoordinated. The stench of alcohol hit me like a brick wall, and my eyes immediately zeroed in on the bright red marks peppering her neck. "Nina, what the—" I started, but she cut me off with a dismissive wave of her hand. "Relax, Jake," she slurred, her words running together. "I'm a free woman. I can do whatever I want." My heart sank as the implications of her words sank in. She had been cheating on me. The woman I had vowed to love and cherish until death did us part had betrayed my trust in the worst possible way. Who was it? I demanded, my voice trembling with a mixture of anger and heartbreak. Nina merely smirked and stumbled off to the bedroom, leaving a trail of discarded clothing in her wake. I stood there, frozen, my mind racing. Who could it be? And why? We had been together for 7 years, and as far as I knew, our marriage was solid. Or at least, I thought it was. Grabbing her phone from the counter, I scrolled through her messages, my stomach churning with each explicit text and graphic photo I uncovered. Derek Foster, her ex-boyfriend from college, the one she had sworn meant nothing to her anymore. With shaking hands, I forwarded the damning evidence to my own phone, a sick feeling settling in the pit of my stomach. This was really happening. The next morning, I woke to the sound of Nina groaning and shuffling around in the kitchen. I steeled myself for the confrontation, clutching her phone in my hand like a lifeline. "Morning," she mumbled, clutching her head as she shuffled into the living room. I wordlessly handed her the phone, the messages and photos laid bare for her to see. She glanced at the screen, her expression a mixture of surprise and guilt. "So you found out," she said flatly, no hint of remorse in her voice. "Who the hell are you?" I choked out, because the woman I fell in love with, the woman I married, would never do something like this. Joss said in a hard line. She shrugged. Actually shrugged. "People change, Jake. Maybe I'm just—" "Don't even try justifying this with your bullshit, Nina. Get out," I growled, my hands balling into fists at my sides. "Pack your shit and get the hell out of my house." Nina shrugged nonchalantly, as if our 7-year marriage meant nothing to her. "Whatever you say, Jake." She turned and headed back to the bedroom, leaving me alone in the living room, my world crumbling around me. 2 hours later, she emerged with a suitcase in hand, not even bothering to meet my gaze as she walked out the front door and out of my life. I sat on the couch, my head in my hands, trying to make sense of the past week. The divorce papers sat on the coffee table in front of me, a stark reminder of the new reality I found myself in. A knock at the door jolted me from my thoughts. Frowning, I stood and made my way to the entryway, peering through the peephole. Rachel Thompson, my ex-girlfriend from college, stood on the other side, a confused expression on her face. "Rachel?" I said, pulling open the door. "What are you doing here?" "Nina called me," she explained, her brow furrowing. "She said you needed my help urgently." Anger bubbled within me. Of course Nina was behind this, forcing an encounter with my ex as some kind of twisted retaliation. "Look, there's been a misunderstanding," I began. But the words died on my lips as a figure brushed past Rachel on the front step, his face contorted with rage. Rachel's husband, Lucas. "Look, it's not what you think," Rachel started, but he cut her off with a dismissive wave of his hand. "Don't give me that bullshit," he spat, rounding on me. "You're having an affair with my wife, you son of a bitch."
No.
Rachel's eyes widened with panic, shooting me an imploring look. "No, of course not. This is all just a big misunderstanding." "What?" "No, it's not true. My protests were drowned out by the sound of a familiar cackle from behind Lucas. Nina stepped into view, her phone raised and recording the whole scene. "Smile for the camera, darling," she sneered, her eyes glinting with malice. "This is going to make for some great evidence when we go to court." Nina's expression was one of pure delight, eagerly lapping up the chaos she'd orchestrated. "Lucas, wait." I took a step forward, hand outstretched in futility. His head whipped around, eyes blazing with unbridled hatred. "You keep your lying mouth shut," he snarled, venom dripping from each syllable. "This isn't over," Lucas spat, jabbing a thick finger in my direction. "Not by a long shot." Despite my desperate pleas, Lucas wasn't having any of it. He grabbed Rachel by the arm and dragged her back to their car, leaving me standing on the porch, dumbfounded and utterly betrayed. My eyes meeting Nina's. "What the hell was that?" I growled through clenched teeth. She offered a serene smile, utterly unfazed. "Just having a bit of fun, love. Payback for your indiscretions." My hands balled into white-knuckled fists. "You deranged bitch, I never cheated on you." A derisive chuckle bubbled past her lips. "Save the innocent act, Jake. We both know you're far from it." With a deft flick of her thumb, she pocketed her phone, chin upturned in a sickening display of smug arrogance. "I've got all the proof I need right here." She patted her jacket, lips curved in a poisonous smile. "Just wait until everyone sees what a lying, cheating bastard you really are." Nina's laughter echoed in my ears as she turned and sauntered away. Just like that, the woman I once loved had transformed into the cruelest, most vindictive adversary I'd ever faced. The weeks that followed were a blur of anger and despair. Nina's betrayal cut deeper than any wound I'd ever experienced, and the thought of her with that smug bastard Derek made my blood boil. As I sat at my desk, staring blankly at the computer screen, a sudden realization hit me. Nina had always prided herself on her high-paying job at the marketing firm, constantly flaunting her success and lavish lifestyle. But the truth was, I had been the one to help her land that coveted position in the first place. A sly grin spread across my face as an idea began to take shape. If she wanted to play dirty, I'd show her just how low I could sink. I pulled up the incriminating videos I had squirreled away, evidence of Nina's gross negligence and lack of professionalism during meetings and work hours. Footage of her scrolling through social media, chatting with friends, and even hiring freelancers to do her job for her. "This ought to teach you a lesson," I muttered, attaching the files to an email along with the explicit photos and texts from her sordid affair. With a few keystrokes, the damning evidence was sent directly to Nina's boss and the Human Resources Department. I leaned back in my chair, a sense of grim satisfaction washing over me. 2 days later, my phone rang. It was Nina, her voice frantic and laced with panic. "Jake, please, you have to help me," she begged. "They fired me. They saw the videos and the proof of the affair, and they terminated my contract on the spot." I couldn't help but chuckle at the desperation in her tone. "Looks like the tables have turned, sweetheart. Enjoy your newfound freedom." With that, I hung up, leaving her to wallow in the consequences of her actions. With Nina's downfall secured, my attention turned to her sleazy ex-lover. Derek Foster had always been a thorn in my side, even back in our college days. It was time to put an end to his smug, philandering ways once and for all. I dialed the number for Derek's wife, Sandra, my fingers trembling with a mixture of anticipation and trepidation. "Hello?" came the cautious voice on the other end of the line. "Sandra, it's Jake Saunders," I said, taking a deep breath. "I have something you need to see." Within the hour, Sandra was at my doorstep, her brow furrowed in confusion. I wasted no time in showing her the explicit texts and photos exchanged between Nina and Derek, her expression morphing from bewilderment to fury with each damning piece of evidence. "That lying, cheating son of a bitch," she seethed, her hands balling into fists at her sides. From there, events spiraled out of control. Sandra filed for divorce, dragging Derek's name through the mud in the most public and humiliating way possible. Accusations of domestic abuse and violence soon followed, leading to Derek's termination from his high-profile job and a lengthy court battle. In the end, Derek lost everything. his reputation, his assets, even custody of his children. As I watched him slink away from the courthouse, a broken and disgraced shell of his former self, I couldn't help but feel a twisted sense of satisfaction. With her career in tatters and her lover's life in ruins, Nina was left utterly alone and ostracized. I made sure to send proof of her infidelity to every member of her family and social circle, ensuring that she had nowhere left to turn. At first, she tried to plead her case, bombarding me with frantic phone calls and messages, begging for forgiveness and a second chance. But I remained resolute, ignoring her pathetic attempts at reconciliation. "Please, Jake," she sobbed in one voicemail. "I made a mistake, but I love you. We can work through this." I deleted the message without a second thought, reveling in her despair. As the weeks dragged on, the calls and messages became fewer and farther between, replaced by a deafening silence. Nina had become a social pariah, shunned by everyone she knew and loved. Occasionally, I would catch glimpses of her at family gatherings or out in public, her once vibrant and confident demeanor replaced by a hollow, dejected shell. It was a satisfying sight, a reminder of the power I now held over her. With each encounter, I could see the life draining from her eyes, the weight of her actions finally catching up to her. She had made her bed, and now she had to lie in it alone and utterly miserable. Months had passed since I'd last seen or heard from Nina. I had almost managed to put the entire sordid affair behind me, focusing instead on rebuilding my life and moving forward. That is, until the fateful day she showed up on my doorstep, a shadow of her former self. I peered through the peephole, my heart skipping a beat at the sight of her disheveled appearance. Dark circles hung heavy beneath her bloodshot eyes, and her once immaculate appearance was now a study in disarray. Jake, I know you're in there. Please." Nina's muffled tone warbled with fragility. "We need to talk." Against my better judgment, I pulled open the door, steeling myself for whatever pathetic excuse or plea for forgiveness she was about to unleash. "What do you want?" I rasped, hating the way my tone faltered. When she spoke, her voice was scarcely above a broken whisper. I messed up, Jake. I messed up so damn bad. Save it, Nina. Your words mean less than nothing to me now." "Jake," she croaked, her voice little more than a hoarse whisper. I made a terrible mistake." "You think?" I scoffed, crossing my arms over my chest. "Derek left me," she continued, her bottom lip trembling. "He took everything, the house, the money, everything. I have nothing left." "I'm alone," she whispered, raking a hand through her lifeless hair, completely alone. "My family, my friends, my whole damn life is gone." I couldn't help but let out a derisive chuckle at the irony of her situation. Well. Looks like the tables have turned, sweetheart." "Please, Jake," she begged, tears streaming down her face. "Give me another chance. I'll make it up to you, I swear." I studied her for a long moment, reveling in the sight of her broken and pathetic form. This was the woman who had betrayed me in the worst possible way, who had shattered my heart into a million pieces without a second thought. "Please, Jake," she rasped, palms pressed together in a gesture of entreaty. I was sick, toxic, broken, but I've hit rock bottom, and I swear I can change. Just give me one last chance to— "No," I said firmly, shaking my head. "You made your bed, Nina. Now you have to lie in it." Her shoulders slumped in defeat, and she turned away without another word, disappearing down the street and out of my life once more. I slammed the door shut with a deafening bang. No more listening, no more hollow pleas for forgiveness she didn't deserve. She'd chosen the depths to which she sank. The divorce proceedings were a long and arduous process, but I remained steadfast in my determination to sever all ties with Nina once and for all. As I sat in the courtroom, listening to the lawyers bicker back and forth, I couldn't help but feel a sense of detachment from the proceedings. Material possessions and assets meant nothing to me anymore. All I wanted was to be free of the toxic burden that had been weighing me down for far too long. When the judge finally announced the settlement, I wasn't the least bit fazed by the fact that Nina was awarded half of our shared assets. We had built that life together, after all, and I was more than happy to let her have her share if it meant washing my hands of her completely. "Are you sure about this, Mr. Saunders?" my lawyer asked, her brow furrowed in concern. "She's getting a substantial amount of your net worth." I simply nodded, my gaze fixed on Nina's defeated form across the aisle. "It's just money," I replied. "I'm ready to move on." As we rose to leave, Nina turned to face me, her expression a mixture of anger and resignation. For a fleeting moment, our eyes met, and I saw a flicker of the woman I had once loved, the woman who had promised to cherish me forever. But the moment passed, and I turned away, ready to embark on the next chapter of my life without her. The moving truck rumbled away from the curb, taking with it the last remnants of my former life. I stood in the doorway of my new apartment, surveying the blank canvas that lay before me. It was a fresh start, a chance to rebuild and rediscover who I was without the weight of Nina's betrayal dragging me down. The road ahead would be long and arduous, but for the first time in what felt like an eternity, I was filled with a sense of hope and possibility. As the days and weeks passed, I threw myself into my work, channeling all of my energy and focus into advancing my career and honing my skills. The scars left by Nina's actions would never fully heal, but with each accomplishment and milestone, I felt myself growing stronger, more resilient. I started to venture out into the world again, reconnecting with old friends and making new ones, slowly but surely rebuilding the social circle that had been decimated by Nina's vindictive actions. And though the memory of her betrayal would always linger in the back of my mind, a constant reminder of the depths to which love could plummet, I refused to let it define me. I was a survivor, a fighter, and I was determined to emerge from the ashes of my past a better, stronger version of myself. As I stood on the balcony of my new home, gazing out over the twinkling lights of the city, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, I was ready to face it head-on, armed with the hard-won wisdom and resilience that only true heartbreak could forge. I was free, and the world was mine for the taking. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your precious time. If you enjoyed this story, then please make sure you subscribe to this channel. That would help me a lot. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.